In a moment that shook royal corridors to their core, Prince Harry reportedly collapsed after receiving a private message from Princess Anne just minutes before he was scheduled to appear in a live broadcast. Was it grief? Was it guilt? Or had a royal secret finally broken him? Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. It began like any other carefully scheduled appearance. Prince Harry, now based in California and rarely seen in the UK, was due to address a global audience via live satellite his team had prepared meticulously. Yet, as he adjusted his collar and stepped toward the camera, something changed. Witnesses say his face turned pale as his aide handed him a letter unmarked except for a wax seal bearing Princess Anne's personal crest. Harry looked at it for nearly a minute, unmoving, before slowly breaking the seal and reading. What happened next was not just unexpected, it was terrifying. Within moments, Harry staggered backward, clutching the edges of the table beside him. A low thud was heard as he hit the floor, out cold. The live stream was cancelled with no explanation. Emergency services were rushed to the scene. One staff member, speaking anonymously, described the room as pure panic. His team had no idea what was in the envelope, but they knew it wasn't a casual message. The palace refused to comment. Aides went dark. But the timing couldn't be ignored. Anne had been absent from public view for days. There were already whispers that she had been preparing something serious. When the letter's existence leaked to the press, its description stunned even the most seasoned royal insiders. Urgent, sealed, emotionally devastating, one source stated. And it wasn't just the collapse that set the world on fire, it was what followed. Online speculation exploded. Social media lit up with theories, many centering around long-buried secrets and deep familial betrayals. Some pointed to Anne's cryptic remarks earlier in the week about truths that can't stay buried. Others recalled past tensions between Harry and the senior royals, particularly Charles and William, and wondered if Anne had chosen to break rank. Eyewitnesses from the broadcast site say Harry had already seemed distant that morning, as if something was weighing heavily on him. He barely spoke, refused his usual tea, and kept glancing at his phone. The arrival of the letter was clearly no coincidence. It was planned, deliberate, and meant to arrive at the most critical time. That Harry collapsed is fact. That the message came from Anne is confirmed. But the content, that remains locked away from the public for now. Medical staff treated Harry for shock. Meghan was informed within minutes and is said to have responded with quiet rage. The royal family, meanwhile, has released nothing. Not a word. But what could have possibly been inside Princess Anne's message that reduced Harry to silence and then to the floor? The answer lies in a chain of secrets buried for decades. Sources close to Anne say she hesitated for days before finally sending the message that would shatter Harry's composure. But what pushed her to act now after years of silence? And why was this secret never supposed to leave the walls of Balmoral? The weight of silence had pressed on Princess Anne for decades. Unlike the theatrics of her brothers or the cautious diplomacy of her nephews, Anne had always carried herself with a quiet, relentless resolve. But even resolve has its breaking point. For years, she had been the lone guardian of a truth too corrosive to be spoken aloud, a truth sealed behind palace walls, locked within the sanctum of Balmoral, where the Queen once made her most haunting vow. Those close to her say she changed after her final visit to the Queen's private study, where a note, yellowed with time and trembling with meaning, was hidden among old royal correspondences. That moment fractured something deep within Anne. And now, with the monarchy wobbling between preservation and implosion, she decided the truth could no longer remain entombed. She didn't type the message. She refused to. Every word was written by hand, inked in anguish and determination. The handwriting, unfiltered by the cold polish of digital distance, told Harry more than the words themselves could. This wasn't a briefing, a protocol, or a calculated royal maneuver. It was a raw confession from a woman who had buried the truth too long. The note, now infamous among palace aides, contained a line that reverberated through those who dared whisper of its contents: "The betrayal sits beside you, not behind you." That phrase alone was enough to send. Ripples of fear across the royal household. Because if that betrayal was as close as Anne suggested, then Harry wasn't merely betrayed by history, he was betrayed by the living. The only person Anne allowed into this torment was an aging royal archivist, a man who had once served the Queen during her most secretive years. It was with his help that she confirmed details buried in royal footnotes, private journals, and oral recollections never meant to be written. Anne asked him one question: "If I don't tell him, who will?" His silence was her answer. It was then she knew what she had to do. And in a twist that raises even more questions, the message allegedly referenced the Queen's final conversation about Harry before her passing. She had spoken in riddles, as monarchs often do, saying only he must know who closed the gates behind him. It wasn't the storm that chased him out, but the hand that opened the door. These cryptic words lingered with Anne. When Harry's latest attempt to reconnect with Charles failed, when even Meghan's back-channel requests were ignored, Anne saw the cracks widening. And in those cracks, the truth began to leak. There is a cruel elegance to timing, and Anne understood it better than most. She didn't send the message during Harry's visits, or after a scandal broke. She sent it in a moment when Harry believed the storm had quieted, when peace seemed possible again. That, perhaps, was the cruelest mercy of all, because timing in the royal world is never accidental. It is designed to control the narrative, to frame the pain, and to ensure the collapse doesn't shake the wrong pillars. To understand the true weight of Anne's words, we must look back to a moment in the past when everything changed, and a royal truth began to rot in silence. Beneath the pomp of Charles's coronation, a hushed meeting occurred between Princess Anne and 3 royal advi. Source: what was said that night, and why did it resurface now at Harry's most vulnerable moment? The world saw the golden carriages, the cheers, the crowns, but behind those gilded walls, a darker exchange had already unfolded. In the weeks leading up to Charles's historic coronation, a private gathering took place in one of the palace's lesser-known rooms, far from cameras and ceremony. Present were Princess Anne, King Charles himself, and 2 of the most senior royal advisors still loyal to the late Queen's inner circle. The agenda wasn't about rehearsals or royal traditions. It was about something far more volatile: the succession protocol, and a single line buried in the oath, a line Anne insisted should be removed. She believed it would forever sever the blood tie between Harry's children and the monarchy. But Charles, it seemed, had already made up his mind. Anne's objection wasn't theatrical. It was grounded in a truth she had carried like a splinter beneath her skin. The clause in question, though couched in ceremonial language, would effectively render Archie and Lilibet as honorary kin recognized in public, but excluded in perpetuity from the deeper royal order. She challenged Charles directly, questioning his motives, but was met with silence and cold restraint. One of the courtiers reportedly warned her, "If you press this, you'll wake the past." That phrase haunted her, and as it turns out, the past had already been stirred. A secret memo marked restricted, eyes only, had been circulated among those in attendance. It outlined a strategic narrative shift, a royal restructuring plan that would minimize future obligations to any members not actively serving within the crown. Though the memo was believed to have been destroyed days later, whispers suggest Anne had managed to make a copy. She never confirmed it. She never denied it either. But one thing Becca made clear: during the coronation itself, she was carrying something heavier than royal regalia. During the final segment of the ceremony, just as the Archbishop's words echoed through the great halls, Anne was seen visibly tense. She clutched her hands tightly, her jaw clenched. A hidden microphone set up for official archival purposes caught her whispering beneath her breath, "He doesn't deserve this." The phrase sent shivers down the spines of those who heard it on the audio feed later. Who was she referring to? Harry, Archie, or Charles himself? Even more startling was the report that Princess Charlotte, young but perceptive, had wandered near one of the partially closed doors that night of the meeting. Some believe she overheard fragments of the conversation. Days later, she allegedly asked Catherine a question that made her freeze mid-step. "Mummy, why isn't Archie in the family tree on the wall?" Whether coincidence or consequence, that question added yet another layer of unease to an already combustible situation. Anne's defiance at the coronation wasn't simply a matter of protocoling. It was a protest against a rewriting of royal legacy, a final plea to protect the children she believed were being erased for convenience. And while the world celebrated a new monarch, she knew a darker coronation had just taken place behind closed doors, one of silence, exclusion, and orchestrated amnesia. But this was more than a dispute over succession. This was about legacy, bloodlines, and something Charles vowed never to reveal. For years, conspiracy theories swirled around Prince Harry's lineage. But Princess Anne's message didn't confirm the theories, it shattered them with a twist that not even Harry expected. The rumors had always existed on the fringes, whispers traded behind closed doors, speculative headlines that flirted with the forbidden. But within the royal family, the matter was never discussed openly, until now. Buried in the folds of Anne's handwritten message was a revelation that didn't just reignite speculation, it reduced it to ash and replaced it with something far more devastating. According to sources close to the situation, Anne confessed in her letter that decades ago, Prince Philip had quietly requested a private DNA verification. He did it not to create division, but to settle doubts that had grown unbearable. The results, locked away and never spoken of again, were sealed in a classified royal archive under direct order from the Queen. Only a handful of people knew it existed. Fewer still knew what it said. Anne's letter was clear. The result confirmed what many already believed, but with a sinister twist. It wasn't that Harry's paternity had been disputed by the document. It was that the document had been manipulated. Anne claims that at some point after Philip's passing, the original DNA verification was altered and legally reaffirmed through channels that bypassed even the royal court's internal review. The lineage remained intact on paper, but Anne hints that the version now accepted by official royal record is not the version Prince Philip originally received. And the person who orchestrated the change? That name remained absent from her message, but heavily implied. Even Harry's birth, in hindsight, held signs of paranoia and unusual restriction. The level of medical secrecy was unmatched by any royal standard before or after. Anne revealed in her message that during Diana's pregnancy, extraordinary security protocols were enforced not just from the press, but from internal medical staff. A private rotation of trusted physicians, surveillance in the delivery wing, no press briefings until hours after. It wasn't just about safety, it was about control. And that control, Anne now believes, had a purpose, perhaps most. Chillingly, Diana's private journal, an excerpt of which Anne referenced, contained a cryptic reflection. Diana had reportedly written, "They say he looks like no one, but that's not what haunts them, it's who he doesn't look like." The sentence had been dismissed for years as one of Diana's poetic musings, but Anne, in her message to Harry, claims it was an early sign that even Diana feared what the palace refused to confront. The unease wasn't born from lies, it was born from silence, the kind that suffocates more than it protects. Anne ended her message not with comfort, but with duty. Her final words struck like a dagger to the chest. Your truth was not yours to protect, but mine to reveal. It wasn't a betrayal, it was an inheritance, and for Harry that inheritance was now unignorable. His collapse wasn't just from shock, it was the unraveling of everything he had once used to define himself. The name, the role, the bond. Suddenly it all felt borrowed. But why now? Why reveal this after so many years? The answer may lie in Anne's own final act of royal defiance. As whispers grow about Anne preparing for her final public duties, insiders suggest she is determined to leave no ghosts behind. Could this message to Harry be part of her cleansing fire? Time moves differently in royal circles. It doesn't just age you, it defines your every breath by duty, by silence, and by inherited debt. And Princess Anne, the stalwart figure often called the monarchy's backbone, has begun pulling away from the very spotlight she held with pride. One by one, she has quietly withdrawn from ceremonial events that would normally define her calendar. No grand announcements, no dramatic exits, just an unmistakable pattern of absence that left watchers wondering. But now, with the emergence of her letter to Harry, a deeper truth begins to surface. This wasn't withdrawal, it was preparation. According to palace insiders, Anne has been working privately on a document far more personal than protocol would ever allow her memoirs. Not a tell-all, not a public attack, but a confession crafted not for tabloids, but for legacy. Only a select few know the full contents, but the mere existence of the project has sent waves of discomfort through royal corridors. Because if Anne is finally ready to speak, it means decades of silence are about to end. Her message to Harry then wasn't just a personal act of disclosure, it was part of a larger reckoning she's determined to complete before stepping back from public life. A reckoning she believes she owes not only to herself, but to her mother's memory. In one of her final behind-closed-doors meetings before the letter was delivered, Anne reportedly summoned Catherine, Princess of Wales. What was expected to be a routine discussion turned into something entirely different. Palace aides later noted that when Catherine exited the room, her eyes were red, her expression unreadable. Anne didn't speak of it afterward, but the silence spoke volumes. Whatever was exchanged in that meeting wasn't protocol, it was heartache. And perhaps warning. The speculation intensified when an old document long forgotten by the public resurfaced, Anne's oath to the Queen, a rarely acknowledged family pledge said to have been made in private between Anne and her mother during the Queen's final summer at Balmoral. The contents have never been released, but one phrase has lingered through quiet royal channels for years: protect the one who will be cast out before he even understands why. And now, it appears that Anne took that oath literally. That one, it seems, was Harry, the exile, the outcast, the blood too royal to erase but too free to control. Anne's message ended with no signature, just a final line, underlined twice in her own hand: "You must fight this now, or it will consume you later." Not a request, not a plea. A command forged in love and duty, sharpened by decades of watching history repeat itself through cloaks of silence. She wasn't just giving Harry a secret, she was giving him permission to break it wide open. For Anne, this wasn't betrayal of the crown, it was protection of a promise. A promise made not to the monarchy, but to her mother, and through her to Harry. But for Harry, fighting this truth may mean confronting someone he once trusted more than anyone else, his own brother. Why did William remain silent despite knowing what Anne was about to send? Sources suggest a chilling pact between William and Charles that excludes Harry permanently from the inner royal future. A long time, Prince William was seen as the bridge between the old monarchy and the future, calm, controlled, calculated. But beneath that carefully managed exterior lies a storm of decisions that may haunt the crown for generations. As Harry lay collapsed, still reeling from Anne's explosive message, one question thundered louder than the rest. Where was William in all this? And why did he do nothing to stop what he knew was coming? The answer, insiders claim, lies within a leaked internal briefing document titled The Inner Circle Succession Strategy. Though never meant for public eyes, this confidential plan detailed a future framework of the monarchy streamlined, sanitized, and selective. And most notably, it made no mention of the Sussex family line. Not Harry, not Meghan, not even their children. The document referred only to active, bloodline representatives who support the crown through domestic presence and sovereign duty. A coded strike that left no doubt Harry was written out. When questioned privately by aides, William reportedly responded with a statement that sent shockwaves across royal staff. Harry made his bed. It was a phrase not of anger, but of resignation, a final distancing from a brother once considered inseparable. Anne, who had until then hoped William might defend the truth, was furious. Their clash behind palace doors grew so intense that one witness claimed she accused William of shielding the lie because it suits you. From that moment forward, the divide between them became more than generational, it became personal. Meanwhile, William's sudden diplomatic tours to Europe, the Middle East, and even a Commonwealth summit seemed to conveniently align with internal royal restructures. While the public viewed them as service to crown and country, sources suggest these trips were carefully timed to ensure his absence during the delivery of Anne's letter. It was, according to one royal aide, a ghosting done with strategy, not shame. William had deliberately stepped away, creating space for Anne to act while preserving his own deniability. But even calculated distance cannot erase the intent behind silence. Behind it all, looming like a shadow, is King Charles. Reports suggest that following Harry and Meghan's bombshell Oprah interview, Charles offered William what one source called a binding understanding, a father-to-son agreement that would protect William's assent at the cost of permanently freezing Harry's return. In exchange, William would help oversee the transition to a more focused royal identity, free from scandal and external influence. Whether that deal was formal or simply understood, its effects were now undeniable. And yet, perhaps most painful of all is the suggestion that Harry had tried repeatedly to reconnect with William. Texts, calls, private channels through mutual friends, all reportedly unanswered, all quietly blocked. Whether by William directly or those protecting him, the result was the same, a wall of silence. And now, as Harry recovers from the collapse, a second envelope is discovered among his things, addressed not to him, but to Meghan. It was a letter Anne addressed to Harry, but someone else opened it first. Meghan's reaction was immediate, silent, and strategic. For the first time since their royal exit, she made a call to Buckingham Palace. When Harry collapsed, the palace descended into chaos, but Meghan didn't. Behind the doors of their private quarters, she remained eerily composed. As emergency staff tended to Harry and royal aides scrambled to control the narrative, Meghan slipped into a moment of icy clarity. The letter Anne had sent, now resting inches from Harry's hand, was no longer just a message, it was a detonator. And with Harry unconscious, it became Meghan's to read. What she found inside didn't just shake her. It awakened something in her that the Crown hadn't seen since the day she walked away from it. Resolve. A calm, calculated storm ready to move in silence. Within the hour, Meghan placed a secure call. The recipient wasn't a public figure, nor a family member. It was a royal insider with the code name Frostbridge, a contact long believed dormant, perhaps severed. But not for Meghan. The conversation was brief, coded, and ended with only one sentence: "Tell them the silence ends today." Within minutes, her legal team was mobilized. Clarence House received an official request for audience, one Meghan had avoided making for over 2 years. The reply came swiftly: request denied. No explanation, no courtesy, just rejection. That, however, only confirmed her suspicions. Whatever Anne had written wasn't just personal, it was institutional. A crack in the Crown's foundation, a fracture too dangerous to acknowledge. And Meghan, now holding the proof, knew that her silence had become their expectation. That expectation had just expired. Speaking to a close friend in Montecito, Meghan reportedly said, "This changes the entire narrative. Everything we were accused of running from. Now we know why they wanted us gone." Her next move stunned even those closest to her. She contacted an independent documentary team and ordered full re-examination of all archived footage from her wedding day. Every angle, every word, every private exchange. Meghan believed the seeds of exclusion weren't planted at their exit, but at their very entrance into the royal world. She wanted the raw footage, not the polished broadcast, not the curated edit, the real moments. Because now every detail mattered. But perhaps the boldest act of all came in the form of a letter written by Meghan herself, hand-sealed, and addressed to Princess Anne. No aides, no intermediaries, a direct response. Its contents remain unknown, but one palace source confirmed that upon receiving it, Anne sat in silence for nearly half an hour. Meghan's letter wasn't an olive branch. It was fire returned for fire. Not to escalate war, but to say we are no longer playing your game in silence. But while Meghan plotted her move, someone else was watching, someone who has stayed silent for years, Prince Edward. Behind every royal drama, there's a silent operator, and this time it was Edward, known as the family's quiet tar. Titian. He makes a secret visit to Princess Anne hours after the message was sent and leaves with a copy. While the world focused on Harry's collapse and Meghan's silent retaliation, another figure moved behind palace walls with the precision of a chess master. Prince Edward, neither loud nor absent, has long been considered the monarchy's hidden stabilizer. Unlike his elder brothers, Edward never sought the spotlight. But those close to the Queen knew he was one of her most trusted confidants. And perhaps more importantly, The only one Anne ever truly allowed to challenge her behind closed doors. Their bond, rooted in decades of shared wartime briefings, ceremonial responsibility, and the Queen's most confidential missions, forged a mutual respect that could not be broken by protocol. When news of Anne's message began to circulate through the palace's highest corridors, Edward acted without hesitation. Surveillance footage later confirmed what insiders whispered. Edward arrived at Anne's residence alone. No aides, no security, no official record of entry. The cameras weren't supposed to be recording, but they were. And what they captured was telling. He stayed for less than 30 minutes. When he left, he held a plain envelope in hand, matching the size and seal of the letter Anne had sent to Harry. The copy she swore she'd never make? It now belonged to Edward. What was said inside those walls remains tightly guarded, but one source claims Edward left Anne with a chilling statement. This could break more than just Harry. He wasn't referring to public image, he meant structure foundation, the very glue that held the monarchy together. Edward understood the domino effect. If Harry's truth unraveled, it wouldn't stop with him. It would reach back, across generations, dragging with it the concealed decisions of Elizabeth's reign and the ghosts Charles desperately wanted to bury. Hours later, Edward confronted Charles directly. That meeting, held in a sealed chamber beneath Windsor's main estate, was not calm. A palace staffer, who overheard the exchange through the walls, described it as the first time in decades I heard Edward raise his voice. The topic? Anne's letter, the royal response, and the need for immediate damage control. Edward demanded a briefing be prepared for senior aides by dawn. The phrase used in his closed-door directive was unambiguous: prepare for media fallout by morning. But even amid the storm, Edward's concern wasn't just for the institution, it was for his own daughter. Lady Louise, still largely untouched by the chaos, had unknowingly become a symbolic heir to the part of the royal identity that Harry once carried. Edward knew how quickly the media would pivot, how easily narratives could be redirected. He gave clear instructions: Louise must be kept entirely separate. No statements, no appearances, not even a reaction. Edward had played many roles over the years: mediator, advisor, supporter. But now he was stepping into one he had always tried to avoid: the fixer. And not for Charles, not even for the crown. This time it was for truth, or at least what was left of it. And as the storm brews in Britain, a faraway ally steps into the ring, one Anne never expected to return to the battlefield. In the end, it wasn't just Anne's message that broke Harry. It was the echo of Diana's truth, finally rising through the silence. For Anne's words mirrored a final letter Diana once wrote, and locked away. Harry's body may have collapsed, but it was his soul that had cracked long before. The moment Anne's words entered his world, they didn't stand alone, they triggered a memory, distant but sharp. A memory of a mother's voice, warning him of storms she feared he'd face alone. Diana's final note, now legend among those who dared whisper of it, contained a phrase that chilled Harry when he was younger, but which he never fully understood until now. There will come a day, my darling boy, when truth arrives dressed as betrayal, and you will have to stand alone to recognize it. And there it was, decades later, in Anne's letter, almost word for word. Your truth was never yours to protect but mine to reveal. The resemblance wasn't coincidence, it was connection, a shared oath, a hidden alliance between two women who were never meant to be allies. Insiders believe that Anne may have accessed a vault few knew existed. Deep within the royal archives lies a collection known only to a handful of living family members, Diana's private truths. Not press statements or charity notes, but confessions, voice recordings, handwritten letters, unfinished thoughts on scraps of paper. Rumors say Diana requested these be kept sealed until a specific point in time, a point only Anne may have understood. During a final Balmoral retreat, just months before Diana's death, she and Anne shared a walk that lasted over an hour. No staff, no cameras, only wind, trees, and history hanging between them. What was said remains unconfirmed, but many now suspect that it was during this walk that Diana handed Anne the truth, asking her, not Charles, to guard it. When Harry finally regained consciousness, surrounded by silence and a world spinning off its axis. The first question he asked wasn't about his health, or the fallout, or even Anne. It was simple. Did Mum know? That one question pierced every layer of control the institution had built around him. Because now he wasn't just a son who left. He was a son who had returned to find answers only to discover that the person who had the most to say was the one who was never allowed to speak. And as Harry sat in that heavy quiet, Meghan stepped forward, not with words, but with a gesture. She placed a bracelet at his bedside, the same one he had given her on their wedding day. But it wasn't just jewelry. It had belonged to Diana, passed down, protected, hidden until now. A symbol of love, of pain, and of a circle that refused to remain broken. The look in Harry's eyes said everything. This was no longer about exile. It was about resurrection. And now, with Harry awake and the monarchy trembling, one question lingers like a ghost in every corridor of power. What happens when a royal truth can no longer be contained? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.